Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an elderly relative that I help out with their medical requirements, and they're sort of pretty infirm. So I arranged for and took her to the hospital for a medical procedure. It's just a day procedure where you sort of come out, or supposed to anyway, come out on the same day. So so I was across all that. All this sort of stuff's a bit beyond her now. So anyway, I'm doing that. I'm just going to mention quickly here, as I've sort of said before, we live right in the middle of a forest, and so we get a lot of critters. And there's an injured critter. It's like a bush turkey type thing. It's an injured critter, and it's got a pretty messed up foot, and it's looking a bit bedraggled. So I've got some food for it, and if I can catch it, I'll take it to the vet. But it just seems a little bit too sprightly for me to catch it. So I just want to make sure it gets something to eat. So if it comes onto the back deck, I'll just duck out quickly and give it some food and come back again. So it'll only take me a moment or two, if indeed the critter turns up. Coming back to this now, so why is it that the medical system, the hospital system, the doctors' practices, specialist practices are all overwhelmed? Why is that? It didn't used to be the case. If you wanted to go and see a doctor, you never had to make an appointment. You could just go into the waiting room, and this wasn't that many years ago where you could do it. I mean, within the last 5 years, you could just walk straight in. You could get that it would be billed, to the government. So it was what was called bulk billing, and hospitals. You could organise things fairly quickly. That there was no sort of big drama, big waiting lists, or going into waiting rooms and 8 hours later you're still waiting. There wasn't any of that. So clearly things have changed. Now it's the extent to which things have changed, but more importantly, has the bureaucracy adjusted to cater for these changes? Is it still possible to deliver somewhat efficient service? And if so, why isn't it being done? Why is there seems to be a determination towards maximum inefficiency and misallocation of resources, rather than trying to make a system, a healthcare medical system that works for at least the vast majority? And that, so I'm staggered at the ineptitude and the incompetence. I just can't believe it. It's just hard. It's irritating because it takes me a lot of time, looking after my relative, and a relative who's pretty much incontinent. So it's not like these delays and so on don't have a sort of a side cost to them. But anyway, so she's going in for what's a relatively minor medical procedure, really. At her age, maybe nothing's minor, but there's no full anaesthetics. They're not going to matter, and so it's pretty low level in the overall scheme of things. There's a mild local anaesthetic that's given, just to numb a particular area, and the rest of it's and it's usually all over in an hour, less than an hour, and they like keyhole surgery type stuff. And then there's a 4-hour observation period, and if you're still upright and warm at that time, or there's no major obvious deterioration, they send you home. That's the end of it. So anyway, I'm gonna I've sort of doing this, but the booking in procedure. So let's start. We'll start there. That or even the getting the. It's obvious this procedure is needed, but we have to go through the channel. So it has to go to a general practitioner, GP, first. Now, finding a doctor that speaks English and so on. So they then have to refer. That takes time, long waiting, and they have to then refer that to a specialist, specialist in a particular area of health, heart specialist in this case. But so then but the specialist actually doesn't speak very good English either. So that's, you're navigating that. Also, there's quite a long waiting period. Now, when we went to see the specialist, there were patients coming in didn't speak a word of English, but there'd been no thought to arrange an interpreter beforehand. So when it was realised the person didn't speak English, there were attempts at sort of automated type interpreter, but that didn't work. So then they had to get an interpreter. It was organised by phone, and the interpreter, and all this. I mean, the time it takes. So again, we're in the waiting room for hours. So anyway, then we get to see the specialist. Specialist makes the obvious pronouncement that was obvious from the beginning. It didn't need a fucking specialist to pronounce this. So we had to go through a process that took many weeks, lots of time wasted driving around, waiting around, because there was a process we had to go through. So, okay, fine. So then the specialist says, well, you got to have this done in hospital. Well, we already knew that. But so that's all. And then the specialist said, oh, by the way, this is a letter that comes later, is, by the way, you can't claim this on, like, even though she's a pensioner or you can't claim this on the health scheme. This isn't going to be through the health scheme. You have to pay. And it was quite expensive, $20,000 or something for the procedure. And she didn't, well, why do I have to pay for that? And in terms of just loose cash lying around, she couldn't really pay for it anyway. But I mean, she could have found the money if she had to. And I'm aware enough of her financial circumstances. No, she could have done it, but that's hardly the point. That she's a pensioner and she's entitled to claim it on here. This guy, the specialist, was saying was that he's a top level specialist, therefore you have to pay premium rates for him, and he's evasion extraction. And I think it was just a scam for him to line his pocket so he can buy a new Merc or a BMW or something like that. But anyway, that's so we then have to go through a large rigmarole of letter writing and phone calling and all sorts to arrange to get the medical procedure back onto the. So that takes fuck knows how long. And again, I'm the one making most of the phone calls here and doing the running around. Now, just in booking it, once we get that through, the booking into the hospital, every person that certainly I had to interact with did not speak English as a first language, and many of them were from sort of nursing labour hire firms. So they were never there the next time you called. So I'd say you have to supply all the information, like from the specialist and all. You have to supply. So, okay, all right. So email that. Say email it. But then that person isn't there, and I've come across this before. By the way, this isn't the first time. That person who you liaise with isn't there anymore. Then you go to the next person who's there, which is another temporary hire from some bullshit labour hire firm. They also don't speak English as a first language. Some of them speak English so badly that it's torturous to try and. These are the people who are at the front line of the hospital and booking in patients for medical procedures. They're the ones that are going to dot the I's and cross the fucking T's of what needs to be done, what information needs to be there, what the health status of the patient is. Now, there's no way that my relative could have worked through this. I had to have my wits about me 100% and be patient as fuck just to navigate through this. So you send the stuff again. And again, I've been through this before. You send all the medical information again, but then you call back, and a few days later, there's yet another. You don't get the response that you're supposed to get. Then you call back in. There's yet another person who's now sitting in this chair. There's no continuity in these roles at all. I mean, why can't they just employ a fucking full-time person to do it who speaks English? I don't know why they can't do this. Why are they doing this to themselves? Well, part of this is affirmative action and quota hiring. They've got to have so many people who don't have a non-English background, who are brown and black or lesbian or whatever. That's the priority, giving the service. So they're creating problems for themselves. So you can't. It takes 5-6 times, 5-6 attempts to get something done. rather than just one that it should be. And this is insane. So each time, now I don't know how many times I had to send and resend the information. I think it was 5 times in the end. And every time they said, no, can't find it, lost it, don't know where it is. And so finally we got it done. And it just turned out the person that got it done and got it nailed, gave us the proper reference numbers, was someone who did speak good English, and who was experienced in medical administration in this case. Now then you get to the actual where you arrive at the hospital, and you have to do the talk through. The first person, again, unqualified, didn't speak English. When it got escalated to the next person, which is not the booking in or the physical booking in, but someone who sort of the preparation nurse, I suppose you'd call them. She was a white Caucasian who spoke English and knew what she was doing. But that was the only one so far who, bingo, she knew exactly what she's doing, what needed to be done. So, why is the system clogged? Why is it? It's because there are so many inbuilt inefficiencies and incompetencies and levels of ineptitude. The getting anything done is like as an Australian slang expression, is like pushing shit uphill with a sharp stick. So it's hard work getting it done. And again, great perseverance, patience, and determination to see it through. So we're now in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing. So that's good. And again, it's done in 5 or 10 minutes, bang, done, and on you go. So people like that know what they're doing, and they can do something. I mean, the productivity of these other people is probably a fifth, less than a fifth of what a competent white person can do. And you can imagine that at so many layers across the health system, so many layers. You can imagine how this delays and slows down and so on. Now, one thing I noticed as we were booking in was the amount of Chinese people in this particular hospital who didn't speak a lick of English, by the way. Now this is in spite of our government telling us, no, only people with good English. Oh, you have to pass a rigorous English test, otherwise it's just you don't get in. That's bullshit. The amount of utterly illiterate Chinese peasants are just, and they all want to get free healthcare from the hospital system. So they're there, and there's no interpreters. Now, this is in an area that does have a fairly decent sized Chinese population in Sydney. And so, but no one thought to have Chinese interpreters. I mean, really? What? And I asked, is this usual? You get this many? Oh, yeah, every day. And yet, every day, they're coming. They come in these numbers. That it takes forever to process them because of the language problem, and you don't have any interpreters. I mean, give me a fucking break. Interpreters come out of a different budget and this and that, and it's all bureaucratic, gobble speak. But the bottom line is they've got people there who don't speak Chinese, but they don't speak English either, or barely speak English in the booking side of things. And then they don't have the interpreters either, when they could easily, they know this is happening. Why aren't the interpreters there? And it's not like there'd be a shortage of interpreters. Now, I speak Passport Mandarin, so I can listen. And I was going to volunteer, just to help the backlog. I was going to volunteer. Okay, this person has says they've got the flu or a cold. This person is saying this and this, and so on. This person's come in on behalf of a relative, and they want to. And on it go. I could have done some interpreting, and my Mandarin isn't that good. It's not perfect. It's not like college level or something. So, but no interpreter. So these are the sort of things, with the affirmative action, the quota hiring, just piss poor organisation, and these are the problems they cause for themselves. Anyway, then the fucking medical procedure comes along, and the three there's one doctor and 2 assistant doctors, what do they call them, that are doing the procedure. None of them are Caucasian. The main doctor, who's dark brown, does speak decent enough English, so that's okay. The other 2 not so much. I don't know what they could contribute to that. They were trainees of some sort. I'm not sure I understand it exactly. But there was a senior, white doctor, I think the foremost specialist, who was sitting in the corner, who fell asleep, by the way, during the process. So I'm watching here, and then and then the people left the room, and these doctors, like the doctor and the trainee, they're both very slightly built Indians. So when they had to move my relative from the operating bench onto the trolley to move it, they couldn't do it. So bear in mind, she's under an anaesthetic, and she's a senior citizen, 50% infirm. So they asked her that she had to roll off the operating thing, because there were no orderlies left. The orderlies had left early for the day. The orderlies, their shift had ended, and no one had rostered on any other orderlies to help with the thing. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. Seriously, this is a hospital that's been, I mean, can any place be organised this badly? So anyway, then we got round that, and then went to the ward, and they appointed a nurse to look after my relative, and she needs to go to the bath. She can walk, so she needs to go to the bathroom again. She's close to incontinent, and so the little Asian, I assume she is Chinese, because I spoke to her in Mandarin. So the little Asian nurse, again, she'd be like 4'10". I reckon she'd weigh 90 pounds, sort of 42 kilograms, something like that. And I mean, she couldn't hold up a beanpole. and she's the one who's supposed to carry and guide the relative. I'm thinking, well, where's the wheelchair? Wouldn't that be easier? No. That's too well organised. So her English was pretty poor. Fortunately, I was there to interpret. So, but without that, fuck knows what would have happened. So these are some of the inefficiencies, that everything takes way longer than it needs to, because there are just people who are unqualified in there and who don't speak the language. And there are masses of patients due to mass migration. There is a shitload of patients coming in that don't speak English, or speak it so badly they might as well not speak it. And there are no interpreters there, and no interpreters are organised, even when they know that they've got masses of Chinese, but for example, masses of Chinese people that don't speak English and they need interpreters. They don't provide for it. Therefore, things slow down. Things have to come to a stop. Now, do they do sort of sensible things like, okay, we can't see you now because we don't have an interpreter organised? And sometimes they do it by phone, by the interpreter by phone. It's not always like people come in physically, but okay, you're going to sit over there. We'll come back to you in a minute, and we're going to serve other people in the queue, or that sort of thing. They don't do those sort of. They don't engage in sensible, reasonable expediencies to try and say, okay, we need to deliver the medical service to the people who need it. They don't do that. It's all bureaucratically procedural, and they stick to that. And again, with affirmative action quotas and so on. So when you look at that, in the wounds of inability to deliver medical services, or the slowness or the low quality of delivery, they're all self-inflicted wounds. And I'm fucked if I know why they do it. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.